Hi YouTube, Josh here normally with the channel ZZZ Giant Awake, but it's Saturday on the Breakfast Club. Today's message has been brought to you by condoms, making life simpler. Honestly, so I don't get in any trouble, I'm not sponsored, that was a joke. So this week we are talking about incest. Now, incest is one of those things that human beings find icky. I'm glad Sketchy got his video in before I'm recording this one because I recommend you watch it. It is actually something that's been proven through anthropology and through other sciences that most species have a disinclination naturally to have incestuous relationships. And it's for the reasons that Sketchy mentioned, which is it's negative to propagating the species, which I'll get into in a second. JJTalkz brought up the idea that it's not a big deal to have sexual relations or incestual sexual relations because the stats are essentially negligible, and that's kind of true. For a couple who shares roughly 50% of their genetics, it's not at all the case. And 50% genetics would be brother, sister, father, daughter, mother, son. Not likely to be the mother-son situation for biological reasons, but that being said, studies have shown that somewhere between 30 to 50% of incestual relationships that are that close, that produce children, end up with some sort of birth defect or genetic defect. For those of you who don't know, but I assume most of you do know, we get two copies of DNA, one from our mother, one from our father. DNA is millions of bonds long. And so there's at some point, it's likely that you're going to have something that is somewhat negative. Fortunately, the other pair can kick in, or the other set of DNA can kick in, and essentially make up for the defects in the first, and vice versa. But when you have so much DNA in common, it's likely that you'll have the same defect from both the mother and the father, causing there to be issues. Now with cousins, it's not as pronounced. It could be considered negligible, but you're doubling your odds of going from like a 2% chance of a defect to a 4% chance. And with all of the beautiful different people on the planet, I don't know why you would want to double your odds if you can avoid it. Now onto the moral side of it. For me, it is not my job to judge who should be sleeping with who and what sexual acts can and cannot be done in a bedroom. As long as you're not causing someone to go to a hospital or being at risk of going to a hospital, I think it's all fair and cool in the bedroom. Now, again, I find the idea of having sex with someone whom I'm related to, even if it's a cousin or a second cousin, a little ugh. But, that being said, if someone else is gonna do it, they're not harming anybody, they're not doing it to reproduce, and they're just having fun, that's their jazz. That's their music, not mine to judge. And this is actually something that came up in a debate that this reminds me of between Laurence, Krauss, and some scholar who happens to be Muslim, where he said, well, how do we know sleeping with brothers and sisters is wrong? And Laurence Krauss says, I'm not sure that it is. And he went on to explain that there's really nothing, unless there's some sort of, like JJ was talking about, unless there's some sort of manipulation or some sort of, or unless you're trying to reproduce, there really isn't anything wrong with having sex with a sibling, which sounds really weird to say. As far as there being a whole group in pornography that exists because of it, I just want to state that there are a lot of groups of pornography that include acts where most of the viewers would not partake in. They just are fantasies, and they're being played out on a video between two consenting adults. I did also want to kind of laughingly address what Tommy from the Bronx had to say. So if there was a family, 2 parents, 2 children, boy, girl, you couldn't possibly procreate humanity into existence. To start a species or to propagate a species, you need to have somewhere between 100 and 10,000 individuals of that species. So if you were down to just one family, you're not going to get very far. Most likely, if you're under 50 individuals of a specific species, you're going to die out within a generation or two. But I guess you could use it as an excuse to not feel icky about having sex with your sibling, because I'm sure the desire to have sex would still be around. I guess really what JJ was going after was for us to find something that's disgusting or gross. And I guess if I were to do that, what I would find disgusting, gross, or weird would be being in the same room as somebody I know having sex with somebody else I know. I just, and again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just wouldn't be cool with it. And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, just imagine if you had to be in the same room as your parents having sex. Nothing wrong with your parents having sex, but yeah. So I think I'm going to end it there now that I've created enough nasty imagery. Yeah. I apologize for this video. Peach, we'll be seeing you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.